Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Connon, host of Brew and Dash. We're here for a special crossover episode of the show with Ryan Wall from Wildcat Dash. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Can't wait for tomorrow's game.
It'll be an interesting one. Pac-12 South rivalry. It's up in the air. UCLA is the favorite, but who knows? There's a lot of mayhem going on in the Pac-12 right now. I mean, as we're speaking, Oregon State is dangerously close, which not a lot of people saw coming. I certainly didn't. But tonight, we'll be talking about tomorrow's UCLA against Arizona game, and we'll be talking about Grant Gunnell, how he tore up UCLA last year, and what could change, as well as how COVID could impact this game, UCLA missing players, Arizona having fewer games, schedule is up in the air around the conference, and then just the overall keys to the game. So we'll get around to all of those. If you have any thoughts and you're watching live, leave your thoughts, questions, concerns, everything in the comments below. Let us know, and we'll try to get around to everything. But starting off with Grant Gunnell and Arizona offense against UCLA. Gunnell last year completed 66% of his passes for 352 yards and a touchdown, no turnovers against UCLA. He was a last-second addition to the starting lineup when Khalil Tate went out, but really ended up tearing up that UCLA defense, which was not pretty last year, to say the least. So, Ryan, you were around last year. What did you see from Grant Gunnell last year against UCLA, and do you think he can replicate that this time around?
Yeah, last year that was his first game starting. Last year he went in and out, switching between Khalil Tate and him. And so this year there's more stability. And his first two games he's been pretty good this year. I mean, last week, they avoided a blowout against Washington. He had some touchdown passes late, and yeah, this year, I think the Bruin defense is actually all right. I mean, last week they gave up, I think, about 35 points to Oregon, somewhere around there. And yeah, I think Gunnell is going to have a good game because Arizona's offense wasn't clicking that well last week, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I made the trip down to Arizona last year. I remember being up in the press box. But the whole week we were talking about Khalil Tate and what could happen there, mobile quarterback versus the UCLA defense. And then all of a sudden it's Grant Gunnell, and he just blew up the defense. It was the classic Jerry Azanero defense for UCLA, where you're giving guys a lot of space on the sidelines, outside the numbers. That's really different this year. This UCLA defense is, I don't want to say completely overhauled because they had a pretty bad game against Colorado, but they're playing up a lot closer. They're getting into the backfield, a lot more sacks, tackles for loss. I'm pretty sure they're fifth in the country in tackles for loss per game. So whether it's the running game or mobile quarterbacks or sacks, they're getting into the backfield. They're staying vertical. They're disrupting. They have transferred Quantrez Knight. They have Caleb Johnson, who's a junior college guy. Just all over at all levels of the defense, secondary linebackers, defensive line. You have Osa Odigizua, who's playing like he wants to make himself a first-round pick. Just all across the board, they're a lot more disruptive this year. The secondary, I mean, Jay Shaw is the number one rated defensive player in the Pac-12. So this is, even though the roster is pretty similar to how it was last year, you have a very different style. You have Brian Norwood as the defensive backs coach and the passing game coordinator coming in from Navy. It's just a really different feel around this UCLA defense, where last year the issues were they were too soft, they were weak, they would give cushions. And this year, if there are issues, it's because they're over aggressive. So even though they're not perfect, it is a different defense. And I'm really curious to see if Gunnell can take advantage of that. Because like you said, I mean, he's had passer ratings above 150 these past two games, so he's playing pretty well.
Yeah, I think tomorrow he's going to look to split that defense open early. I think he's going to try to take some shots downfield and really get going. I mean, because last week, it was just very disappointing to watch. Up until late third, early fourth quarter is when he started to hit his stride. And yeah, I think the offense is going to perform well tomorrow. I think I think it's going to be a very high scoring game. I think both teams are going to score in the 30s, and I think it's going to be a shootout late in the game.
Yeah, I mean Gunnell, like week one or week two against USC, 286 yards, 3 touchdowns. Last week against Washington, 259 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, those are the two of the better teams in the conference. Say what you will about their defenses, but just going up against pretty good competition, even if it was mostly playing from behind against Washington, you're still seeing Gunnell throw over 35 times a game. That's what he did against UCLA last year when he attempted 44 passes. And just for his career, 15 touchdowns to 2 picks. That's a guy who takes care of the ball. He knows what he's doing in terms of decision making. This UCLA defense hasn't really forced a lot of turnovers. They had the one scoop and score last week against Oregon, but overall, they're for as aggressive as they are, they're not forcing turnovers. So considering it's Gunnell as the opposing quarterback this week, I don't know if they'll be able to force a lot of turnovers from Arizona this week. I don't know. Do you think Gunnell could kind of slip into like being too comfortable and maybe turn the ball over a few times? What have you seen from him that could tell you if he turns it over or doesn't, protects the ball or doesn't?
I mean, he had a fumble, I believe, 2 weeks ago. But besides that, he's had one pick on the season in the first game, and yeah, he's taking care of the ball just as he said. And yeah, tomorrow I think that's going to stay the same. I don't think he's going to throw a pick. I fully expect him to have a great game. I think he's going to continue that streak from last year against UCLA by throwing over 300 yards, and I think he could have 4 touchdown passes tomorrow. I mean, like again, like what really is the promising part is 2 weeks ago with their first game against USC. Like he just tore apart that defense, and USC is like a top 25 team in the country. Like that's how they're ranked for like. So I just think if everything seems right, I think like he's gonna have a great game tomorrow. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look at UCLA's secondary this year, opposing quarterbacks, they're averaging 239 yards per game, 1.3 touchdowns per game. So not video game numbers, nothing groundbreaking. I feel like, I mean, if you look at last week against Oregon, Tyler Shuck put up over 300 yards and a touchdown. Gunnell could certainly do something pretty similar. But the way that UCLA is defending the run, both against Cal and Oregon these past 2 weeks, I feel like Gunnell can succeed and throw for over 300 yards, like you said. But UCLA can still have a chance in this game. Like last year when Gunnell was throwing all over the place and just completing a lot of passes, running clock, running the offense well, it kind of took UCLA out of the game. But the way they play defense this year, I feel like even if they allow Gunnell to have a big game, it doesn't decide the game. I don't know. What do you think about the way that Arizona could run like the pass run balance against this UCLA defense?
I think they're actually going to try like in the first few drives to establish run because they did a poor job of that against Washington, and when they did establish run early against USC, they ran for Gary Brightwell ran for over 110 yards and really put on a good performance. And I think that's what they need to get back to tomorrow. Grant Gunnell is going to do what he does. He's going to throw for like over 250 yards. He's going to have his touchdowns. He's going to play well, but it's really going to be about that balance. And to me, I mean, I think this game's going to fall more on the UCLA side and how they perform and how their defense performs.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, I just remember looking before the season these past few weeks at the quarterbacks in the Pac-12, kind of putting them into tiers and ranking them. Where would you? I mean, I've been very high on Dorian Thompson-Robinson the past year and a half. Who knows if he'll play or not? It's looking like most likely no, but we'll get to that later. In terms of Grant Gunnell, where do you think he ranks among Pac-12 quarterbacks?
I've said from the start of the season, and I still believe that he's a top 3 quarterback in the conference. I mean, everyone likes to rant and rave about Keaton Slovis, but when they faced off, like Grant Gunnell was clearly better to me. And like Slovis, I don't get the whole hype on him. Like he's not he doesn't have a great arm. He doesn't throw a great ball, like a really catchable ball. And just I think Grant Gunnell checks all the boxes. I really do. He's becoming more accurate week in and week out. He can throw the deep ball, and he's more mobile than people want to give him credit for. In the first 2 weeks, I think he's ran for over 30 to 40 yards each week, and just like gaining those first downs when the team needs. And I do think DTR is a very good quarterback. I would put him in that tier one group. So depending on if he plays tomorrow, I think he could really tear up Arizona's defense too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who knows if DTR will play, but Grant Gunnell and DTR are very different quarterbacks. Just you look at their builds, Gunnell's 6'6", DTR is a 6'1", 6'2", depending on where you look. But it'll be an interesting quarterback battle. I mean, if you look at Gunnell versus Chase Griffin, who would start if DTR is out, who's 5'11", 5'10", that you get two very different size quarterbacks, two different builds. It'll be very interesting to see, but we'll take that and move on to our next topic, which is about COVID-19. You had the Colorado USC game got canceled this weekend. That switched things up. Colorado is now playing San Diego State. USC's got the week off. It's a big mess in the Pac-12, as it has been all season from the very beginning. Arizona missed their week 1 game. UCLA hasn't missed a game yet, but they had a 48 hours notice for that Cal game. They were missing 9 guys against Oregon last week, and it could be the same this week. We're not really sure because of disclosure, all of that. But Ryan, tell me how you think that COVID could impact this game, whether it's because of missing players or time played or chemistry, just anything of that sort.
I mean, overall, I think COVID has affected the entire season in a really big way. I mean, it affects the way teams practice. They don't. They might not all practice together as a team because if people need to miss practice here and there. And like you said, UCLA had 9 players missing. Like that really messes up a team's chemistry going into a game. And the main factor, as we just mentioned, was if DTR plays or not. I mean, because as you said, he's a very different quarterback than Griffin. And yeah, Griffin's more of he's like a game manager, as you said, and I really don't think he's gonna beat you. I don't think Griffin's not gonna beat Arizona. If he starts, I think it's gonna be based on if Arizona makes mistakes. But if DTR plays, the way he runs and can throw and just all the different things he does, I really think he is a game changer and could be the reason that UCLA wins.
Yeah. Like you said, the biggest COVID impact on this will be the missing players for UCLA. They have 9 guys missing last week, and it could be the same this week. I mean, contact tracing, it's so up in the air depending on where you're playing, where the school is, LA County laws or Pasadena guidelines. It's kind of all over the place. Who knows? We're not really sure who's practicing this week since media can't see practices, but if Dorian can't play and Chase Griffin's the starter, that really limits the ceiling of UCLA's offense. When DTR is in the game, they're a threat to score 40 any day. They could also score 7 and he could turn the ball over 5 times, but the ceiling is so high when you have someone that dynamic and athletic in, as long as you give him the right offense. When it comes to Chase Griffin, maybe the floor is a little bit higher. He turned the ball over 3 times against Oregon last week, and UCLA still put up 35 points. So that's good to see. I mean, I know 7 of those were from your defense, but overall, when you have a game manager who can manage the game but maybe not protect the ball and your offense still scores over 30 points, that's pretty decent. So I think UCLA has a chance if Chase Griffin ends up being the starter, and in all likelihood he will be. But if Dorian Thompson-Robinson comes back out of nowhere unexpectedly, I think UCLA is the heavy favorite in this. So the decision and the regulations and anything that has to do with that decision will be really impactful over the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole key, because as we talked about last year with Gunnell jumping in for Tate at the last minute. So yeah, anything can happen, and we don't know until they kick off who's going to be that starting quarterback. But just I think either way, like Arizona's just going to struggle a ton by stopping that UCLA run offense. I mean, last week they totaled nearly 200 rushing yards, had 3 touchdowns combined between the few guys. And yeah, I think that is a big part of UCLA's game. And if they get that going again, I mean, Arizona, like their run defense is just horrendous so far. So I think they would struggle a lot with that.
Yeah, I mean, both of these guys, Chase Griffin and Dorian Thompson Robinson, are pretty mobile. DTR is obviously the more athletic and more explosive of the two, but they can both run a similar offense. And I don't think having one over the other impacts the rushing game too much in terms of the running backs, because you had Demetric Felton rush for over 160 yards last week. Britton Brown, he chipped in as well. The two of them are really good, two-headed monster kind of thing. And that was without Kashmir Allen and without Martell Irby and Keegan Jones and guys who were out because of COVID last week. So even if they don't come back or can't come back, you still have two good running backs in UCLA with a quarterback who can run the offense to their benefit. So whether it's read options or pitches or lining up receiver Kyle Phillips in the backfield, I think Chip Kelly, he seemed to have kind of tailored this offense in a way that can account for people missing because of COVID or having different types of quarterbacks. So whether they're slightly mobile or really mobile, he is giving his quarterback more freedom. He's giving them more kind of more opportunities to show off their athleticism. And I think that works really well for DTR and well enough for Chase Griffin. But I think I want to go back to Arizona missing its week 1 game. So they've only played 2 games. You've seen them for 120 minutes at this point of football. For UCLA's played 180. Do you think that will make a difference? Do you think game 3 versus game 4 for one team or another will make a difference in terms of chemistry or game plan or who's had enough film, anything like that?
Slightly, but not huge. I mean, I do think, and I did predict that throughout the course of the season that Arizona wouldn't hit its stride until the last like maybe 2 games. So yeah, like I still think they're growing and getting that and building that chemistry as you mentioned. So yeah, I do think it takes time, and that UCLA obviously off that close loss to Oregon last week, they are like a more, it seems like a more team, a more like established group at this point, even with the changes in and out with their quarterbacks. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going to be a big factor in this game. I'm not looking at that as something, because I think Arizona, I think they've been practicing like at the same amount throughout that canceled first week, because that was based on Utah's COVID testing, not us. So I think that Arizona, they seem ready to go, and I think each week they're just going to keep on growing and getting better as a team.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, even if you don't look at internally what's happened with testing or canceled games, how COVID's impacted other teams, and then how that indirectly impacts UCLA and Arizona. I mean, Colorado versus USC getting canceled shakes things up, but who knows how non-conference games will impact standings at the end of the year with tiebreakers and all that stuff. So UCLA and Arizona both have very slim chances at winning the division at this point. But I think it'll be interesting to see if the winner of this can end up kind of like playing spoiler later on. I think this is a good opportunity for the teams to, with USC and Colorado, the 2 first place teams, are tied in first, 3 wins, 2 wins. They're both up there. With them not playing this weekend, I think this is a good kind of a platform for UCLA and Arizona to show who can be that second tier team that can kind of disrupt the standings and throw things off in this really weird season. So I'm looking forward to that. I know UCLA mathematically has a very slight chance to win and to win the division. It's not going to happen, but who knows? If they beat Arizona and go on a run here because of this crazy COVID season, a bad Chip Kelly team might actually win the South. If Arizona wins, who knows? Maybe they can go on a run and throw things off in the standings as well. So I think that's something interesting to look at too.
Yeah, and as we talked about, both teams have been competitive so far in their games, and I think they're both have been playing spoilers like in the past weeks and in the coming weeks because like coming into this year, nobody expected UCLA to be that tight with Oregon and Arizona to be that tight with USC in the first few weeks, especially. So yeah, I think both teams by the end of the season will like be neck and neck. Like I mean, I do think UCLA, if they beat Arizona, which a lot of people will predict that to happen tomorrow, I think yeah they can make a run. I mean, even like further down the line, which won't affect our teams, but like the college football playoff with USC, missing that game, like it basically crosses them off the list. I mean, because it seems like there's not gonna have like they're not gonna push back the playoffs. It doesn't seem like or bowl season, so that could affect that down the line.
Yeah, I think you look at next week, Arizona playing Colorado for the moment. Who knows what happens because of COVID? But I mean, if Arizona can beat UCLA, who lost to Colorado by 6, Arizona's playing at home against Colorado. Can they upset Colorado? Who knows? And Colorado lost a pretty close game to USC, only by 4. If UCLA beats Arizona, then can UCLA have a pretty good chance against USC to end the season? Who knows? There's a
I
lot
think
up in
that
the
will
air.
be close. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
close.
it's the Pac-12 South. It's mayhem.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. I think the overall Pac-12 this year just seems a lot closer. I mean, you don't see that many blowouts. Even teams that weren't expected to be that great are still competing every week. So yeah, it should be a fun last few weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this live. We're doing this live, everyone. Oregon State is up 41-38 on Oregon right now with 33 seconds left in the game. I don't know who has the ball. I don't know what's going on. Who's going to win? I don't really care. That's insane. You got a 1-2 Oregon State team beating a top 10 team in the country. That's going to screw over the Pac-12 when it comes to the college football playoff.
Yeah,
That's insane. I
yeah,
just can't believe that.
30 seconds left. They scored. They were in like the red zone.
Well, we'll check back in with that in a little bit, but for now, we'll move on to our last segment of the day. Just really looking at the keys to victory for both UCLA and Arizona. What each team needs to do to come away with a win, a really important win starting the back half of the season here, the final 3 games. So, Ryan, I'll start with you in Arizona. What do the Wildcats need to do to come out with a road victory here on Saturday?
As I said before, they need to establish the run early, and they need to get all their receivers involved, and they need to let Grant Gunnell take control of the game. And if he gets going, I mean, I think Arizona could put up nearly 40 points in this game. I mean, I think they have an underrated rushing attack. They got multiple guys who can carry the ball. They got Gary Brightwell. I got Michael Wiley. They got Jalen John. They got a lot of guys there, and I think if they get going early, I mean, I think they need to just keep that going throughout the game.
Yeah, and then I think number one for UCLA is taking care of the ball, which is kind of a like no crap Sherlock kind of thing. It's very obvious. Every team wants to do it every game, but look at what they did against Cal. They had an interception and a block punt early, but then took care of the ball for 90% of the game. They won that. They had 4 first quarter turnovers or first half turnovers against Colorado, and they lost that. They have 4 first half turnovers against Oregon. They lost that. These pick sixes, these whatever, you can't have this happening and expect to win the game no matter who your quarterback is, no matter how aggressive your defense is playing. I mean, Oregon last week in the first half had 1 good drive. And that ended in a field goal, went 70-something yards. But all their touchdowns in the first half, they started inside UCLA's 20 or they were pick 6. So you can't be putting yourself in these early holes. And I mean, I would like to think that Chase Griffin can take care of the ball a little better, as Dorian has shown improvement in the past couple against Cal, really, but towards the end of last year. Maybe Chase can do the same if he ends up being the starter. So Ryan, do you think Arizona can take the ball away from UCLA, who's a pretty careless team over the last year and a half?
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying that Arizona hasn't they don't get a lot of takeaways. They don't get a lot of picks, fumble recoveries. So yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, but Arizona, their defense has gotten better. I mean, as I predicted, I didn't think they were going to be that good this year. And they against USC, I mean, last week they were a little shaky late in the game, but against USC in their first game, like they were they were a shutdown defense in the red zone. So I mean, I don't know about takeaways, but I think if they step up, I mean, I think that could go a long way. And yeah, I mean, what you were describing was basically just Arizona last week. I mean, just like if the defense can't stop anybody, then they just get the ball in their own territory and they just can't get anything going. And yeah, that was the story of the Wildcats game against Washington last week.
Yeah, and then I want to move on to the next key to the game for UCLA, which is I think just keeping the intensity up. They did it against Oregon. They did it against Cal. Even in a poor defensive game against Colorado, they were getting tackles for loss just everywhere. They outpaced themselves easily going back to last season. They're getting like 6, 7 per game at this point. You got to stay disruptive, stop the run early to make an El Pass a lot, and then you can get sacks because this defensive line is disruptive. You're bringing linebackers in this 4-2-3, 4-2-5 formation. You're blitzing corners, blitzing safeties, Quantrez Knight's there, and whether it's Osa or Caleb or if K. Madrano's back from the COVID list, you have guys who can disrupt the opposing offense. And I think that's what you need to do to slow down Gunnell and slow down this Arizona offense. What about you? What's your next key for Arizona?
I think it's about getting to the quarterback. Arizona, they haven't had any sacks, but like they've gotten very close getting to the quarterback. Aaron Blackwell, graduate transfer from New Mexico, has did a very good job of that. And I think this week, like if Chase Griffin starts, I think they could get they could sack him a few times. I mean, they got a very physical group in there. They got some veterans mixed in, and I think their linebackers are underrated. And yeah, I think that like that front to the linebacking core is going to be the area that they need to focus on doing a better job against UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to like UCLA is their offensive line and their quarterbacks have been doing a very good job at avoiding sacks. That's part of the reason why their offense has been either moderate to very successful so far this year. So if that gets thrown out of whack, then who knows what will happen. I think Arizona definitely gets a leg up if they can get to the quarterback. Dorian Thompson-Robinson only got sacked once between weeks 1 and 2, and then Chase Griffin got sacked twice last week. So who knows if it's a quarterback decision-making thing, if the offensive line is kind of slipping a bit, if the chemistry is an issue. But I will say Dorian Thompson-Robinson, people are looking a lot at his completion percentage, barely above 50. It's around 52 compared to Chase Griffin, which is a little bit above 60, 61, 62. I think part of that, and it relates to Arizona's pass rush, Dorian Thompson-Robinson this year has been very good at getting rid of the ball. He's still a bit of a reckless scrambler, but he can still get rid of it. Where you look in past years where he would take a lot of sacks, he'd take 3, 4, 5 sacks per game. There were times he got sacked 7 times a game. It was ridiculous. So his completion percentage is down because he's still getting attacked in the pocket, but now he's scrambling and getting rid of it instead of running backwards and taking a 15-yard sack. So completion percentage is down, but it's probably not the worst thing for the offense. You'd rather have a 0-yard play than a negative 15-yard play. If Chase Griffin's in there, who knows? Maybe they can force some of those double-digit negative yard plays. That'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah, those were some good points. I mean, the last thing that I think Arizona needs to do tomorrow is getting their tight ends more involved. I mean, they have a senior tight end, Bryce Walma. He had a catch early in last week's game, but like I think they need to get him more involved. I mean, like that's where Arizona's offense, that's where I think it like stops. Like I think if they can get their tight ends more involved, like I think you could take it to the next level. And they also just Grant Gunnell last week struggled a little bit with getting rid of the football, and like I just think he needs to do a better job of that. I mean, like you talked about, like scrambling, throwing the ball away, like that's what separates a good quarterback to a great quarterback to me. Like you need to recognize when when your line's collapsing and get rid of the football.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to wrap up here quickly. I'll say Oregon State held on to win the game. That's insane. Congrats to everyone at Beaver Dash, the Oregon State show. Did not see that coming. Civil War. That's crazy. Who could have seen it coming? Not me. I took Oregon on the over, and they lost outright. So that's crazy. And I just want to say, Demetric Felton's going to put on a big game tomorrow for UCLA, Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year. And my pick, I'll go UCLA 34-23. How about you, Ryan? How do you think it goes score-wise?
I'm going to take Arizona 37-34. And I just think they're getting disrespected with that minus 10.5 line. I mean, like, I just think, like last week, I know they lost by over 15 points, but like that's crazy. I mean, I think it's going to be very close. I mean, but I think Arizona one of these weeks needs to pull it out, and I very well could see it happening tomorrow.
Yeah, who knows? I could just be a slave to Vegas, just wanting to take UCLA on the over by half a point. Who knows? But we will find out tomorrow. So Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on and joining me for this special crossover edition of Brew and Dash.
Yeah, no worries. It was a great time.
You can follow us on Twitter at Dashboards TV. You can watch live every week. We got shows for every school. Just want to give a quick shout out to Sports Pac-12. You can follow on Twitter at Sports Pac-12. They publish all of our written content at sportspac12.com. You can find it on our site too. It links to theirs. You can find those columns from every school every week along with the shows. We're doing a lot of content here at Dash Sports. But tomorrow, it's game day. It's Saturday for college football. So tune into that game. We'll see if UCLA can hit that over.
Yeah.
Until next week, see you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah.